All right, hi everybody. Welcome to Concurrency's webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about the next generation of AI, which is really agentic patterns and agents. And in this webinar, what we're going to be talking about is comparing kind of a high code, like code, version of this in Semantic Kernel, and what you can do with low code in Copilot Studio. I'm Brian Hayden. I'm a solution architect here at Concurrency. And I am joined with Ajay. Ajay, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yep, thanks, Brian. My name is Ajay, and I'm a senior engineer at Concurrency, working mainly on the low-code, no-code side of things and Copilot Studio and Power Platform. So, yeah, looking forward to this event.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's move to the next slide. So, like, what is Semantic Kernel? What is, Copilot Studio? So I'll just give you the quick definition of the two. When we're talking about semantic kernel, what we're talking, we're specifically talking about coding framework that is open source, provided by Microsoft, and helps us build and compose agents. In Copilot Studio, this is basically doing automation using the Copilot Studio framework. So very low code, maybe some code. Ajay can talk a little bit more about that. But let's move on and talk a bit more about what semantic kernel is. Domains to consider. Before we jump into this journey, let's talk a little bit about AI and how we've framed up this to our customers. On the left side, we have commodity, and when we use AI, we're talking about tools or licenses that you buy. So think of like M365 Copilot or ChatGPT as commodity-based things. They're SKUs that you can just purchase and leverage AI. With our customers, though, we're often talking about mission-driven opportunities and how to create direct ROI, for their customers by developing things that don't exist in the market. And so what we're going to be doing is spending our time basically in the mission-driven and how we approach this. The next slide. This is a great way for us to kind of articulate what you can actually do both in the commodity and the mission-driven space. So if you read this slide from top down, essentially you're going to see accuracy improve as you move through the stack. So when you go to ChatGPT and ask questions or Copilot, essentially you're just getting answers that are grounded in the information that it was trained on. But then you start moving into the commodity AI like the M365 Copilot, and it's able to ground against data that your organization has. So we've increased the accuracy because it knows more about you, but it's still kind of a commodity tool set, and it doesn't really do any specialized workflows. But as we move down to the semi-custom area, we're building agents that have specific actions that we want to take or requests that we needed, to respond to. And then we can get even further into the, custom ML area where we're doing very focused, tools don't really solve the problem. We may have to build new models for the organization. So this just kind of gives you an idea of where these projects kind of land in the spectrum. And what we're looking at is something that's going to bridge between the semi-custom and the custom ML. So another way you would look at this is starting with the, why are we doing this, or what value is a particular AI opportunity going to bring to the organization? And this is a value analysis that we do with our customers. We'll do an ideation session and then help to stack rank the effort that's involved and what the expected ROI might be. But you always want to ask yourself when you get into these custom code or these semi-custom areas, like, what is the value proposition? Why am I doing this? And it might be okay just to say we want to try something out, and we know that this technology is going to work to give us a vision of how this might work in more complex scenarios. But this is a good way to start. So what are agents? Most of us on this webinar have used AI, ChatGPT, And so also, most of us have probably played around with chatbots that can start to use documents or information to answer the questions better. This is like that retrieval augmentation generation like framework that has become a lot more popular. And that's how Copilot M365 works, is using that kind of pattern. But as this evolves, it starts to take actions. So now I can ask Copilot to do things inside of my document. I can ask it to add a slide that compares two different topics. I can ask it to go find information and bring it back for me. So those are some of the agentic things that we're doing today. But we're going to get into some more complex scenarios that get to closer to like a fully autonomous, where you can ask an agent, and I've actually seen demos of this over the last week, where you ask an agent to go do something and it interacts with the external world in order to accomplish your goals. And another way to look at this is how these agents have evolved. And if you go way back, when computing first started, and the first things people wanted to do was save time and energy in the work that they did. So they started doing basic automation. They started writing scripts. They started building, small programs to be able to do some of the automation. And it became kind of cumbersome to have to to write code from the very beginning. So RPA tools, started to take the place. Power Automate has been a very successful tool. There's UiPath, a bunch of other tools in the RPA world. And recently, about 2 years ago, we started bringing in like human, interactions, like natural language processing, and that's where the chatbots, became really effective, because it's not just about setting up these workflow automations, but it's asking, a system on how would I accomplish this, or getting information. And now we're in this place of like doing, agentic work. That's, where we're at right now. And there's a couple of different concepts that like a couple different ways that we've broken this up. We started with just LLM, and it was very difficult to work with some of the documents because they're very image oriented. Think of like your IKEA manuals on how to install or how to build a desk. There's more pictures than there are words, but you and I can look at that. How do we get this to work? The multimodal models are starting to be able to interpret that information and be able to give you, answer the question: what is the step by step on how to, build this desk? But those are like, just singular agents, reading a document, trying to frame it up. And now what we're, starting to get to is how do I take, that and break it into more complex tasks and say, go read this document, go get this other piece of information, go bring this all together, do some planning activities and give me a result. So when you think about developing a multi-agent, architecture, you're going to probably evolve, from the chatbot down into more complex actions using something like Copilot Studio. Maybe you're using Semantic Kernel, but it's also kind of important to like think about how you're going to scale this, for your organization. And that's where when we get into custom ML, that we start bringing in conversations like ML ops, like we would do DevOps in any other engineering project. So this is more of like a maturity of a way of framing up the maturity for your organization, where you're going to need to like think ahead. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what is semantic kernel? I gave you like the high level definition. Semantic kernel, at the end of the day, it's an open source framework provided by Microsoft. It works with C# developers. It works with Python. It even works with Java. The framework itself is to be able to create agents that understand how to pull the different pieces of information together, how to chain agents together so that they can perform more complex tasks, and do that by using natural language and reasoning built into the framework. So how this is actually used, basically a framework that you import into a library, if you want to think of it that way, that you import into your application. And then as it's, as part of its planning activities, it's going to reach out to plugins. We'll get into some of what these definitions are, and other AI applications. I did mention that language, it supported were multiple languages. It also can be used outside of the Microsoft ecosystem for other AI applications. So it would work with, Grok or Google's, any of the other general models as well. And on the next slide, let's talk about agentic patterns. So what do we mean by agentic patterns? So these are like really complex personal assistants that are going to accumulate the knowledge that it needs in order to answer your request. So a good way to think about this, we've all seen like the hallucination, kind of aspect of LLMs. They only have a limited amount of knowledge. I can ask OpenAI model O1 for, piece of information that was built after, or that was knowledge that was created after it was built. I don't know, just tell me. I stopped in June of 2023. I don't know what that is, or I can't read the weather because it's not what I was trained on. I don't have that knowledge. So agentic patterns are ones that are going to go out and retrieve additional information, maybe process, using another LLM to do some other work and then bring it all together. Next slide. Okay, so actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Go back to the so more specifically, what do agents do? They take actions, they have memory, which is a very important concept. They can remember the request that you asked so that when you give it additional feedback, it can refine its responses. A very big important part of what Semantic Kernel is going to do is it plans. So as you register plugins and agents, you give it instructions. This is what this portion is able to do, and then it orchestrates all of those different actions together to drive towards your results. And for those of you that are thinking that there's going to be code, this is the most code you're going to see today. And there isn't much. It's just, one single line. But what is Semantic Kernel like if you're a developer that's going to be using this in Visual Studio? At the heart of it, it's a dependency injection container. So what you're going to do is register. You're going to register your agents, different components. Those might be APIs. Those might be other LLM models. Those might be other agents that you're registering. And then give it instructions around the planning so that it knows how to respond to it. What is it going to do? It's basically going to select the optimal path that's going to take. It's going to process the natural language of your request. It's going to figure out which one of the agents probably have relevant information. It's going to build kind of the plan of how to get you to your final destination, and then return the results to you. There's several different components, or a bunch of different components. I kind of listed them here. So I'll describe them. The root of it, you've got this kernel, right? And the kernel is all that dependency injection, planning, aspect of it. And what you're going to register to it you're going to register different personas to it. You're going to define who the users that are interacting with it. Think of this as kind of like your prompt engineering aspect of it. You're going to add AI services, different models that you can bring in through a variety of different services. Plugins, I've used that word a couple of times. Plugins could be, any way for you to retrieve data or information in order to return it to the planner in the kernel to figure it out. So it's typically APIs that you're registering and then giving it some sort of declarative, this is what I do. So for example, if I wanted to, grab the weather, this is an API that you would specify that this is an API that returns weather information for a given longitude and latitude. Then we have agents, which also can kind of like be considered plugins. They're very tightly related, but those are other agents that you've built that can be consumed almost as if it was an API. And then finally, we have to have a way to store information. Sometimes this is memory, sometimes this is retrieval, augmentation, generation. But at the end of the day, we have vector stores that help us to find more detailed information. So let's talk about a real world example that some of us might experience. And how do we pull this all together to make a semantic kernel agent? So if you are going to walk into a store and go camping, and you need to get a new tent, you're going to interact with an agent, somebody at the store, maybe it's REI, and say, I'm looking to go, camping out in Colorado. Like, what kind of tent should I get? You're going to interact with a human, and they're going to probably ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to pull on the knowledge that they have in their head, and semantic kernel. One way that you could look at this is like, what are the steps that you would have to go through in order to answer that question if you were working in the store? So, first thing you're going to do is kind of, who am I talking to? Define this persona. How am I interacting with them? And then what is the information that I need to get from that individual in order to give them an informed response? So we're gonna talk to our computer and say, what's available in the system today? Because they're here in the store. If I can't sell it to them or if I can't bring it to them, then it's probably not something I want to like have a conversation about. You might pull into the conversation social media reviews. So you'll have a social media agent that you would need to define. You probably have sold some of these products before, so you're going to give them other customers' feedback and reviews. And then another thing you might want to bring to the table is, what have you used before? What tents have you used, on other expeditions, or have you been camping and been in other people's tents? Like, what do you like? Are you in, and so historical context is something that you would bring back as well. And you pull all that knowledge together as an individual, and now you can give them an informed response. So essentially, this is how you would build this in semantic kernel. So now let's talk a little bit about Copilot Studio, and here I'll turn it over to Ajay.
Thanks, Brian, for that. So we're going to like switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the low code, no code side of things. So Microsoft introduced Copilot Studio back in 2023, Ignite as a low-code platform where you can build intelligent chatbots or even extend to Microsoft 365 Copilot as well. So it is a conversational chatbot where you can kind of like provide multiple knowledge sources and then allow the Copilot Studio to kind of like interact with that chat or knowledge source and then provide results. And in addition to that, you can also automate a lot of your process and make sure that Copilot Studio is doing a bunch of things instead of like you having to manually do a lot of things. So uh, and generative AI feature is being used in the Copilot Studio. So before last year, there was Power Virtual Agent, which was previously available under Power Platform. So it did not have like the generative AI capabilities. So you had to like manually create a lot of different topics and conversational pattern. So that was kind of a pain point in that scenario. But with the inclusion of the whole generative AI and the Copilot Studio AI functionalities, so now you can easily connect your different knowledge sources like your business data and everything to your Copilot Studio and let the Copilot Studio interact with your data and then get the appropriate result. So it is a low code platform and you can easily use the graphical interface in order to build a conversational pattern, or in addition to that, if you can connect to your knowledge sources, it will provide those results as well. And so you can connect your Copilot Studio with different data sources like an CRM application or a Workday or like different platforms. So you can definitely connect Copilot Studio and automate a bunch of your processes as well. And since there is Bell on top of our platform and then some connectors are available, there are currently over 1100 plus pre-built connectors available. And if you want to do additional HTTP calls and things like that. So you can easily do that as well from Copilot Studio. So it's a low-code platform, and it allows you to, build simple chatbot using few clicks. And then also, if you want to like automate your process, you can do that as well. We'll be taking a look at some of the use cases, and we'll do a quick demo as well a little bit later today. So yeah, that's a little bit about the Copilot Studio. So let's take a quick look at the architecture. I won't deep dive into the whole details, but I just want to like give you guys a little bit overview of what are some of the different things that are happening in the background. So Microsoft Entra ID security is definitely the most important thing, right? So you can use Copilot Studio and then deploy for an internal employees or even for external customers as well. So you can do it in an authenticated way or a non-authenticated way, depending on where you have store your data sources and then your knowledge sources. So depending on that, you definitely have a bunch of different options for the authentication side of things. And then if you want to add additional security, there is definitely options for doing that. So like I mentioned, since it is built on top of Power Platform environment, so there are definitely data loss prevention policies and other additional securities that are inbuilt in Power Platform. So you do have the ability to restrict certain HTTP calls or certain sections. So you do have the ability to do that at the Copilot level or even at the tenant level as well. So there are inbuilt securities available there. And the next thing is Copilot Studio uses bot framework skill in the background. So when you spin up a new Copilot Studio, it automatically comes with few entities. So entities are basically how Copilot get to know what the user is talking about, like the place, things, that kind of thing. So when you spin up a new Copilot Studio, it automatically comes with some bunch of predefined entities. And if you would like to build additional custom you know entities, so you do have the ability to do that in a low code no code way. So there are a bunch of options there. So for example, if you want to build a Copilot Studio for an IT help desk, and you know that the ServiceNow ticket number is pretty much the same, so you can kind of like design those custom entities and things like that. So that way, whenever a user types a certain pattern of or number, so it gets to know that the user is talking about a ServiceNow ticket number. So that's just an example. So you do have the ability to create additional custom entities as well. And in addition to that, also like I mentioned, so generative AI functionality was ingested last year, and before that there was no generative answer, but you had to like build custom logic for all the conversation pattern. But with generative AI, so you still have the ability to disable that functionality. But when that is being enabled, so it pretty much uses the Azure OpenAI in the backend to look at the different knowledge sources that you have provided and then accordingly provide the appropriate response. So Azure OpenAI is being used at the backend for some of those. And in addition to that, if you want to build custom logic specific to your business without using some of the Gen AI functionality, so you do have the ability to do that as well. So you can uh, design the conversation pattern, like how the question should be structured, what kind of questions the bot should ask before providing results, right? So you do have the ability to do that as well. And you can connect your Copilot Studio with Power Automate, which is a pretty powerful tool with over 1100 plus out of the box connectors. So you can use a Power Automate. You can call a Power Automate from Copilot Studio to get some of the details and then provide the result back to the user. So there are some powerful capabilities there as well. And then since it is built on top of our Power Platform, so you do have the ability to build and then safely deploy to test and production environment relatively quickly within the Power Platform infrastructure as well. And at any point of time, if you want to escalate to a different agent or like an actual real agent, so there are advanced functionalities where you can connect with Microsoft Dynamics 365 or other call center options, so that way it gets escalated and the user gets all the different conversation questions and everything. So there are definitely capabilities to do that as well from Copilot Studio. And there are analytics as well available in Copilot Studio, so you get to know how the conversation is going, what is the customer satisfaction, how the questions and navigation is going. So there are some additional capabilities there as well. So based on some of those analytics, you can kind of like iterate and improve your Copilot as well. So it's a pretty and everything is a low code, no code fashion. So if you would like to do a code programming side of things, you can definitely do that. But with this particular Copilot Studio, you can pretty much build intelligent copilots that allows you to do certain things for you, and also get response from FAQ document or like different websites as well. So now let's take a quick look at how the generative AI is changing the whole building. So traditionally, if you look at some examples like an Azure bot service, so you had to like spend a lot of time manually creating the topics and navigation patterns. So that was one of the drawback, and because of that, there were a lot of missed opportunities where the copilot or like the chatbot was not able to answer some of the details, and which resulted in missed conversation or getting escalated to an actual agent, right? So that was one of the drawback before generative AI. And then every time you change the knowledge content, you have to like manually spend a lot of hours and then update the copilot as well in code. So those were some of the drawbacks previously before the whole generative AI was ingested, right? So you had to like manually author a lot of topics, resulting in missed opportunities as well in some scenarios. But with the inclusion of generative AI and functionalities in Copilot Studio, there are a bunch of different benefits. So now you don't have to manually create all the different logics and topics in Copilot Studio. Instead, what you can do is you can easily connect to different data sources or knowledge sources that are available, or even API calls, right? So, and the generative AI will be able to answer based on the user questions. So, you can easily connect to your public websites, or if it's for an internal scenario, so you can easily connect to your SharePoint site where you have added a bunch of different documents related to HR or a bunch of different things, right? So you can easily connect your knowledge sources to your Copilot Studio, and then allow the Copilot and the backend LLM model to kind of like look at those documents and provide the results. So with the inclusion of the whole generative AI into Copilot Studio, it easily allows you to use those knowledge sources to provide answers, which will result in less escalation and less, questions being unanswered, right? So there are so the generative AI is really changing that aspect, and then you also don't need like an advanced data science person or like developer to kind of like build this, because all these can be done in a low code no code fashion, so it is easy to build, maintain, and enhance as well. So just let's take a quick look at the generative answer process and some of the consideration. So whenever a user starts typing something to the Copilot Studio, so the query or rewriting happens where it will kind of like rephrase the question or like item which user have mentioned in the chatbot. So it will pretty much look at use query rewriting process in the backend, and then what it will do is it will look at do the content retrieval, where it will check the different knowledge sources that you have added to your Copilot Studio. So it can be a public data where you have added bunch of different public websites to your Copilot Studio. It will you can do that, and then the Copilot will look at the data sources and try to generate a response. It can be like a SharePoint for internal scenarios where you have connected your SharePoint site to your Copilot Studio, and then it will look at the different documents that you have added in that SharePoint to generate response. You can also use some advanced functionalities where you can connect your Azure OpenAI as well. So you can use your personalized model as well in there. So there are functionalities for that. And In addition to that, if you want to upload documents directly to your Copilot Studio, so you can do that as well. So previously there was a limit of just 3 MB per document. So that was recently increased to 512 MB. So that gives a lot of different capabilities as well, right? So Microsoft recently increased that, and the file will be securely stored in Dataverse, which is in Power Platform as well. And if you want to use some custom data, you can definitely use some HTTP calls or like Power Automate to get and fetch some of the information from different knowledge sources as well. So pretty much after the query rewriting happens, it will look at the different knowledge sources that are available and then accordingly do the summarization or make sure that some of the hallucination has been removed and some of the harmful and the malicious content has been removed and then accordingly provide the result. So this is how it happens in the backend, and everything is done by Azure OpenAI, so you don't have to manually make any changes there. So it is pretty much a low code, no code pattern. So just going over some of the top use cases. So you can use the Copilot Studio for your internal organization as a for a B2B or B2C as well. So there are a bunch of advantages of using the Copilot Studio. So for internal HR, chatbot is one of the most common use cases which we have seen, where you can do a bunch of things like employee can ask certain questions about their leave policy or like about the company policy, right? And in addition to that, if an HR person wants to onboard new user or automate a bunch of different things, so you can do that as well. So we'll be taking a quick look at some examples shortly, but uh, you can pretty much use your Copilot Studio for your internal employees or for B2B, B2C, like for as a external facing customer chatbot. So you can definitely build that as well. And Microsoft is investing heavily on Copilot Studio with a lot of new features coming up pretty every now and then. So new functionalities are definitely getting added as well. So we'll take a quick look at an example of HR chatbot. So what we have done is we have connected Copilot Studio with a few different places. One is like Microsoft To Do, where you can kind of like automate and create some personal tasks. And in addition to that, we have connected to Dynamics 365, where you can start onboarding process for an employee, or pretty much send offer letter, training materials, all those things. So within few clicks and then few messages, you can do that directly from Copilot Studio. That will allow you to not go to multiple places for doing all these things. And then for an employees type, so you can ask questions about HR queries, PTO balance, leave application, that kind of thing as well from Copilot Studio. So I am going to bring up the Copilot. So you can see that this is pretty much in Teams. So what I've done here is I have deployed the HR chatbot in my Teams. So similar to how you're kind of like chatting with different users, so you can kind of like use this particular chat to interact with your Copilot, ask questions, automate certain things as well. So you do have the ability to deploy safely to your Teams channel. So what I'm going to do, and Teams is not the only place where you can deploy. You can deploy to your public websites or like customer service. All those scenarios can definitely be handled as well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start a conversation with the Copilot and ask a few things. So the first thing which I'm going to do is do a little bit around the automation side of things. So I want to like do something like user onboarding. So you can see that pretty much provided a couple of details and it's asking for the employee name. So I'm going to provide the employee detail. I'm just going to onboard myself in this scenario. So now you can see that it pretty much mentioned that, thank you for your confirmation and onboarding has been started and alert has been sent for manager approval. So you can see that within just few clicks, you have actually started and done an automation and then also created a record in your Dynamics 365 instance. So what this does is, let me just okay, so so this is an example of a deployment. So you can see that the record which I just onboarded, so you can see that a new record got created, and then it automatically created an application ID as well. So you can see that the Copilot was able to create and then return the details with the ID as well. So within few clicks, you can start some of these onboarding process from Copilot Studio. So it asks like, do you need help with anything else? So I'm just going to click yes and start keep asking few other things. So what I'm going to do is I am going to ask a question, get onboarding status. So you can see that it pretty much replied, I can help you with the application detail. Could you help me with the employee ID? So what I'm going to do is I am going to type in number, which is in our system. So you can see that the status is extended verbal offer. So, and if you look at the system here, you can see that the application status is extended verbal offer. So this way you can interact with your business data in various systems to get some of these information without having to navigate to different locations as well. So I'm going to continue chatting. So the next thing which I'm going to do is get active onboarding. I'm just going to okay, so now what I want is the list of different records that have been assigned to me. So you can see that from the system, there are a bunch of records that are assigned to me. So pretty much what the Copilot Studio is able to do is look at these different records and then provide me even the link to the records. So if I click, you can see that it will directly take me to the application as well. So you do have the ability to directly get some of those information and all the details as well directly from Copilot Studio. So I want to continue my conversation. So what I want to do is I want to create offer letter. So you can directly do some of these side of automation as well. So I'm just going to mention my name. Okay, so you can see that by providing few information, it pretty much created an offer letter and it will be sent to the email address that is available there. So if I bring that one up, so you can see that I got an automated email with the details which I just provided and with all the details as well. So this way you can even automate and dynamically add some of these content using some of the automation side of things as well directly from Copilot Studio and Power Automate. So the next thing which I want to do is I want to continue my conversation. So what I want to do is I want to create a task for myself so that way, I don't forget. So I'm just going to mention create task. So send welcome email to Jay. So it pretty much asks for the priority. So I'm just going to set as medium priority. So on doing that, so you can see that a new task got created in to do. So now if I look at, so you can see that a new task got created in to do and it has been assigned to me and it has also set a due date as well. So it depends on the priority, we can automate some of those things as well. So you can see that this way you can directly create records in different places so that way, you don't forget some of those things as well. So I'm just going to continue my conversation. So now I want to ask few things related to time off. So I'm just going to mention time off. So it will give me the prompt with, what exactly do I want to like confirm, right? So I want to ask something regarding the national holidays. So if I can just select from this option, and you can see that, it pretty much, provided all the details for the current year holiday, and also it provided me the link. So if I just click on this link, it will directly take me to the holiday list document as well with all the details. So this way you can get and fetch some of these information as well. And I'm just going to ask one more thing regarding time off. So if I want to like ask, how much balance do I have, right? So I can pretty much click on this PTO balance, and what this will do is it will look at the PTO balance system, and then it will provide me the results. So you can see that it looked at the system and then provided like I have 88 hours of vacation balance. So this way you can interact with different system and get some of those details as well. So I'm just going to continue yes, and then ask a couple of additional things as well. So what I'm going to do is how early should I? So I'm going to ask a question which is specific to a document that is available in SharePoint site. So you can see that I pretty much asked like, how early should I apply for leave? So you can see that it pretty much provided me the details that, I need to, request at least 10 days in advance. So the place where it's coming from is, so I have this document that is added in the SharePoint. So you can see that it pretty much looked at some of these documentation, and then you can also see that there is citation there directly. So I can just click the citation, and it will pretty much take me to the document as well with all the different leave policy details. So you can easily get some of these information directly. And then finally, I'm just going to, at any point of time, if I want to like stop, I can just, mention thank you. And so you can see that you're welcome, and we truly appreciate your time and opportunity. So this way you can create intelligent copilots and chatbot with low code, no code platform, and then, allows or, assign certain tasks rather than having to do it manually. So coming back to demo, so we just briefly looked at like, how Copilot Studio was able to interact with uh, Microsoft To Do, Dynamics 365, SharePoint, and bunch of different documents as well. So just to kind of like let you guys know, so the Copilot Studio and Power Automate automation is really powerful, where you can kind of like integrate both these, and then allows you to bring your business data and get results to all your copilots. So it's really powerful, and Microsoft is investing heavily, and then a lot of new features are coming day by day as well. And just to let you guys know, so Microsoft is heavily investing, and there are a lot of new features coming almost every now and then. Recently, earlier this week, Microsoft introduced a bunch of new templates as well. So you can start with some of those templates for your Copilot development, and then there was a major UX refresh a few months back, and all these are like some of the features that are currently available, and then also some of the features that are expected to come over the next few months. So where to? I will pass it over back to Brian now.
So what can you do next? We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today. If there's any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. But what we would love to do is we'd like to meet with you if you're interested in pursuing or learning a little bit more about this one-on-one. So please fill out the survey. Link is in the chat. And we can help you evaluate a scenario, and determine whether this is something that's going to fit into the semi-custom or the custom ML space. Or, we can do an executive envisioning session with you, or an executive briefing for your organization as well. So I'll stick around for another minute or two, but otherwise, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.